Not
You
like
literally,
I'm saying
so you're comfortable saying, I feel that that the Gospel Topics essays were decorrelating Joseph Smith from the narrative of the church.
Yeah, totally. And well, it's obvious. Anybody can read it and see. To promote this idea that they want to inoculate the youth about the stone in the hat, but it's really infecting them instead because it's a false narrative. So that's just another example of how historians have manipulated church history to accommodate their own ideas.
I'm spending money like I just got paid. $100 bills, tell them keep the change. Come on.
But as far as among church historians, more and more are recognizing that they overlooked a few things.
Pop a bottle, about to make it rain. Let me give you something now to celebrate. Come on.
Are you like the Alex Jones of like?
I hope not.
Like,
I mean,
I don't know, man.
You're wondering why I move the way I do. I just feel so good.
Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, I have discovered mounds in Ohio. Right. Mounds where there was a 7-foot tall man, and the Smithsonian is hiding the truth from y'all. And we're going to go to the Smithsonian. We have secret cameras inside their meeting where they're telling us not to talk about this skeleton of a 7-foot man named Zelf. The following is an episode of Ward Radio and does not represent the thoughts or the opinions of KHTS, its owners, or any of its affiliates, nor does it represent the official opinion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardinal Ellis, and today I'm joined in the studio by Jonathan Neville, who wrote a book recently with James W. Lucas titled By Means of the Urim and Thummim. You're really good at kind of touching those third rail and controversial topics. Yeah. In a previous episode, we pointed out that you're kind of like, we don't like calling you a heartlander. We invented a new term. What was it again? A Cumorah truther.
Cumorah truther, right? Yep.
So now besides being a Cumorah truther, you're also a Urim and Thummim truther.
Yep.
And you're rejecting this new scholarship in quotes, that's talking about Joseph Smith using a seer stone to translate. You're saying, no. This isn't real scholarship.
Yeah.
This is just academia groupthink. And you're supposedly written a book that, if I remember, James Lucas told me it's been cited by Richard Bushman like 11 times in one of his new upcoming books as well.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So you're kind of like a Urim and Thummim truther that's saying, no, they're changing our history.
That's right.
Okay. I'm done with my intro. Just tell us what this book is and why you're a Urim and Thummim truther. Go.
Let's start with the subtitle on there, which is Restoring Translation to the Restoration. Right?
Okay. Awesome.
So the idea in summary is that Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery always said that Joseph translated with the Urim and Thummim that came with the plates.
Okay.
And then subsequently, there were people who said, David Whitmer in particular, who said Joseph used a seer stone that he put in a hat and just read words off the seer stone.
Interesting.
And so it's a long story how it migrated to the point where it's become kind of the de facto accepted belief among certain LDS scholars, And so I started digging into it because I became skeptical of LDS scholarship because of the Hill Cumorah stuff and the Book of Mormon geography stuff. And
are you like the Alex Jones of like?
I hope not.
Like,
I mean,
I don't know, man.
Alex Jones is good, but but he delves into a lot of speculation. I try to just stick with the facts. Okay,
that's true. You're
a big difference.
You're a trained lawyer.
Yeah, and I try to say, just like I approach a legal case, you can have, if you don't have good facts, then you have crazy arguments.
You got to admit, though, he would be a great member of the church with a radio show. Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, I have discovered mounds in Ohio. Right. Mounds where there was a 7-foot tall man, and the Smithsonian is hiding the truth from y'all. And we're going to go to the Smithsonian. We have secret cameras inside their meeting where they're telling us not to talk about this skeleton of a 7-foot man named Zelf. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
That's perfect. That's a keeper right there.
Would Alex Jones be a Heartlander? Is that what
he probably would.
All right, cool. Rock on. All your Heartlander friends are like, no, don't put that shame on us.
And the international Heartlanders don't know who you're talking about anyway. So.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. Keep going.
And I have a lot of affinity with the international Heartlanders, by the way. So,
all right, rock on.
So, The idea is that why do people say Joseph Smith used a stone in the hat instead of the Urim and Thummim? And it's really started with this faith crisis report that John DeLynn put together, and he framed it as a gap between church history, the real church history, and what the church was teaching. And he said it's this gap that is causing people to lose their faith, according to his faith crisis report. Oh. And then that led to the development of the Gospel Topics essays. They came out a few months after his faith crisis report.
Dude, I can't believe how influential that cat is.
I know.
At just leveraging.
I know.
Leveraging this, like, oh no, they might say something mean about us.
Yeah.
Like spineless reaction.
Yeah.
That these bureaucrats have. Like, I think he's a genius. I think he is like the Donald Trump. Donald Trump played the media like a fiddle. Yeah. He just knew he was a Pied Piper, all the focus on him, and he could manipulate the media literally like Kasparov just playing chess. and freaking DeLynn, dude. Like he's got the insinuations down and the the this and that down. He can just play these church office building people like, oh no, he said something mean about us. We've never had to deal with somebody saying mean things about us before, but now it's on the internet, Oh my gosh. Dude.
Well, there is a big element of that, but he's very clever because he developed this faith crisis report, which led to the Gospel Topics essays, particularly the one on translation, and now he uses that translation to cause people to lose their faith. I mean, it's very clever, manipulative. And so I looked through that essay, the Gospel Topics essay, and it's so full of well, how would I say it? I don't want to say falsehood, but it's full of agenda promotion, let's say. For example,
I love having you in the studio. I feel like I love having you in the studio. I just feel like, like the CIA guy that knows the real story just came in, he's like, yeah. They told you that we landed on those beaches and the Bay of Pigs was an accident, didn't they? Yeah, that's not what my buddy Steve said. That's with his boat full of Puerto Ricans, No, not Puerto Ricans. Cubans. I'm an idiot.
Cubans,
the Bay of Pigs was in Cuba.
I was going to say, was there a Bay of Pigs in Puerto Rico?
No, it was the Cubans. At first they thought
exile,
it was... and then they say that it was a bunch of expats that were used from the Cuban Bay of Pigs to... supposedly break into Watergate, and then some people have gone so far as saying that that's who they used to shoot JFK. Yeah. And the only reason why I mixed it up with Puerto Rico is because we just did a podcast talking about horrible government corruption, and there was the Puerto Rican governor that was busted for having a warehouse full of donated goods.
Yeah,
who was selling on the black market in order to get rich, and it was like one of the worst, corruption cases of the past 5 years. Yeah. So anyway, keep going. You're a Urim and Thummim truther that's talking about the history of the whole seer stone versus Urim and Thummim thing. Keep going.
Well, there's a lot of detail to it. That's why we wrote a whole book about it. But there's really two phases of it. The first is, what is the historical evidence, which I've kind of talked about, but this Gospel Topics essay on the translation never quotes what Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery said. It quotes what David Whitmer and Emma and everybody else said. And it's like, they even make the statement that Joseph never said much about the translation. Well, actually, he did. And he published it in the Wentworth Letter, the Elders' Journal, and other places. They just omit all that. And it's to promote this idea that they want to inoculate the youth about the stone in the hat, but it's really infecting them instead because it's a false narrative. It's just like when they say Joseph and Oliver were wrong about the Hill Cumorah, they say they were wrong about the translation also. And so it's another step in undermining faith in those two.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying it's one thing to want to inoculate your youth against anti-Mormon arguments, but you don't have to adopt the arguments
exactly
in order to inoculate them.
Yes, exactly.
It's okay to say look, there's some things we don't know, and people that hate us are going to tell you it's this way. Yeah. But the truth is there's also plenty of contradictory evidence that it actually could have been exactly this way.
Yeah.
And by the way, neither one matters. Nobody's ever willing to actually have those conversations.
Well, where it matters is getting into the credibility and reliability of Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery, because when you omit what they say from a Gospel Topics essay, you're uneducating the saints. I call it decorrelating Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery.
Dude, man, you're a savage, bro.
Well, anybody can read it and see for themselves. It's not like I'm saying this.
So you're comfortable saying, I feel that the Gospel Topics essays were decorrelating Joseph Smith from the narrative of the church.
Yeah, totally. And well, it's obvious. Anybody can read it and see. So I've done side-by-side comparisons.
Bro, I'm sorry. You're never getting called to be a stake president ever in your life, dog.
Is that a promise?
Is that a promise?
Okay. So, but I in this book, Rational Restoration is another new book that I have.
Dude, you pull out books like they're candy from a freaking ice cream man.
I like book covers, so I have to write a new book for each cover I like.
Yeah, okay.
So, but this one compares the Gospel Topics essay on translation with how it should have been. And I'm suggesting it be improved, in other words. It's fine the way it is, but it could be better. That's how I approach
So how
this.
come I never see these on any of the shelves, like a Deseret Book or any of these places?
They sell them a Deseret Book.
Oh, they do?
In fact, the one you have there's an endorsement on the back from Richard Bushman on there.
Oh, so you are in the club?
Yeah, we're in some of the club. We're on the periphery. The book. I'm not in the Scripture Central Club for sure because they're so obsessed with the M2C, the Mesoamerican Two Comoros theory. But as far as among church historians, more and more are recognizing that they overlooked a few things. And I'll just give you one example.
Okay.
They often quote the last testimony of Emma Smith, right?
Yeah.
That her son, Joseph Smith III, interviewed her and wrote down, and she said Joseph Smith never had anything to read from, and that he sat across from me from the table with his face buried in a hat. Well, a few years later, Joseph F. Smith wrote a long essay about the translation because David Whitmer had come out saying Joseph used a stone on the hat, and he refuted that whole narrative. He concluded at the end that Joseph and Oliver used the Urim and Thummim that came with the plates. And he didn't even mention his mother's testimony because I think he knew that she was near death, so she could have either been senile or influenced or whatever. But so he was mostly addressing what David Whitmer said. But for Joseph Smith III, Emma's last testimony was not even worth quoting or mentioning when he wrote about this topic. And so, and yet you read it in our own Gospel Topics essays like it's the gospel truth. So there you have the interviewer himself and the son of the person who said it who didn't think it was credible.
So what are the biggest, I don't want to say lies because that's way too conspiratorial.
Yeah.
But what are the biggest untruths that you feel have been woven into the fabric of the narrative of the church that need to get unwoven out of that fabric?
Stone in the Hat was one of them.
Okay.
The Hill Cumorah in Mexico is another one.
Okay.
But the stone in the hat, now here's another thing, because I know other people like Hannah Stoddard has talked about how Joseph never used the seer stone, which I disagree with that. Because there was a guy named Zenas Gurley who went around and interviewed all these people, and he said it's clear that Joseph had a seer stone because a lot of people said he did, but he used it to satisfy the awful curiosity of his followers. It wasn't to translate. And that's
really?
Yeah, and that's what I propose in the book, and we talk about in there, that Joseph, people would ask him for a revelation, and he would start to dictate, and they said, no, use the seer stone. So it was kind of like he didn't need the seer stone to receive revelations, but his followers expected him to use it.
So what's the evidence of that theory, that it was just to satisfy the awful curiosity?
Awful curiosity. Well, that was Zenas Gurley's conclusion after interviewing everybody.
When you say a name like Zenas Gurley, I just imagine the guy with his Schwarmy hat from the Wizard of Oz that's just like some traveling, charlatan snake oil salesman, He's probably a great upstanding guy.
He was a good upstanding guy. He wrote a lot of good stuff. But
some of those 1800s names were just wild. Like Philastus Hurlbutt. Like, what?
A Dr. Philastus Hurlbutt.
Yeah, Dr.
That's his first name.
Hurlbutt. It's like, man, I don't even know what to do with some of these names.
I know. They are weird.
Okay,
for sure.
So
I agree with his conclusion.
So he said that the seer stone was literally just to satisfy the curiosity of the mob, for lack of a better term.
Well, of his followers.
Of his
people around him.
followers.
Yeah. People like, say, David Whitmer.
Is there anybody else that says that as well besides him? Because at the end of the day, that's just one man's opinion.
That's one man's opinion, but it's consistent with the evidence. Because you have, on one hand, you have Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery plus Moroni and the whole narrative about the importance of the seer or the stone in the hat, right? Not being part of the narrative. Whereas Moroni even told him when he first visited that he provided this Urim and Thummim in order to translate. And in Ether it says it was included in order to translate. So the idea that, Joseph didn't really need to use those and he didn't need to use the plates contradicts that whole narrative. the historical evidence, because Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery always said that it wasn't just the Urim and Thummim, it was the Urim and Thummim that came with the plates. They specified that. And the reason they did was, I don't know if you have a 1830 copy of the Book of Mormon around here.
1830 copy of the Book of Mormon? I've got the Bickertonite one. I've got...
Okay, don't worry about it. But in the 1830...
I've got the internet. I can look up a...
Yeah, you could. But it's all right. I can paraphrase it.
Okay.
So the introduction to the 1830 Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith wrote a preface.
Okay.
And he said, right at the beginning of the preface, it says... In response to the false rumors that are circulating, I'm explaining how the Book of Mormon came about effectively. There it is. You got it right there.
To the reader, the preface? Okay, right here. So I'm actually going to put the original because it's printed well enough that I'm actually going to place the original here.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's the original, and it says, to the reader, as many false reports have been circulated respecting the following work, and also many unlawful measures taken by evil designing persons to destroy me, and also the work, I would inform you that I translated by the gift and power of God and caused to be written 116 pages, to which I took from the book of Lehi. Oh my gosh. Wow. This is interesting.
It's right there. And so what were the false rumors, though? And the number one false rumor was the idea he used a stone in the hat.
Oh, so this new stone in the hat
is a reprise of this whole thing.
Is just a rehashing of the, you know, somebody told me that most of the pneumo arguments with a lot of these new conservative offshoots are really just RLDS accusations that are now getting kind of rehashed, that, we lost the priesthood in 1840. We're operating on the Aaronic priesthood right now. The church is currently in apostasy, so on and so forth.
That's
and they've showed me original documents that, like, this is what was getting said in, like, you know, post Nauvoo by RLDS people. It's like, wow, dude.
Yeah.
It's like a butter churn where it just recycles every 150 years,
does.
You know?
Well, what had happened is, I think it was in September of 1829, before the Book of Mormon was even published, this guy named Jonathan Hadley wrote an article in his newspaper in Palmyra. And he said that Martin Harris would come in and try to convert him and stuff, and he didn't want anything to do with it. But he said that according to Joseph Smith, he put spectacles in a hat, and that's how he translated the Book of Mormon. That's what this Jonathan Hadley did. And so there's two LDS scholars. I don't know if we want to mention them by name, but they're
names.
Okay.
I want names, baby.
Well, Garrett Dirkmatt is one of them.
Okay.
And the other one is Michael McKay.
Okay, cool.
And they both work on the Joseph Smith papers, editors of the Joseph Smith papers.
Sweet.
So they wrote a book called Joseph Smith Seer Stones. And more recently, they've written one, you know, this Let's Talk About series that Deseret Book has. They did. Sure. Yeah, well.
I don't.
They did a
we don't have Deseret Books in LA.
Okay,
so,
you're lucky.
Okay.
In some cases. But they had, they did one on Let's Talk About the translation of the Book of Mormon. Okay. And they open it with this Jonathan Hadley story. And they, according to their theory, Jonathan Hadley was the first account of the translation of the Book of Mormon, and he said Joseph put spectacles in a hat, meaning the seer stone in a hat, effectively. But what they don't tell, and they create a whole narrative that he was a supporter. But wouldn't the
spectacles be the Urim and Thummim?
Well, yeah, they would be. Which makes the story ridiculous because no one could see the Urim and Thummim, right? Joseph was prohibited to show him. So no one could see him put the spectacles in the hat if he had actually done that.
Okay.
And so it starts off as a ostensibly credible report, but it doesn't make sense because it contradicts the Joseph's commandment not to show the Urim and Thummim. But that was the genesis of the stone in the hat narrative. And so these guys claim that Hadley was a supporter of the Mormons, and so he was explaining the translation. What they don't tell people is that years later, Hadley wrote an article explaining his interaction with the Mormons and how he opposed them from the beginning. He was trying to ruin their whole reputation, and he never met Joseph Smith. So when he said that Joseph Smith said this, he had never met Joseph Smith. It was just a hearsay thing that he put in there. And so the whole Dirkmatt and McKay created this false narrative that they've been promoting by just omitting what Hadley actually said about this whole incident. It's unbelievable. And I've talked about that in articles and blogs and stuff. So that's just another example of how historians have manipulated church history to accommodate their own ideas. Like the stone in the hat.
They're manipulating church history to accommodate their own ideas.
Definitely.
That is rough. That's an indictment, but I mean, you're bringing examples to the table.
There's specific examples. I wrote a whole article about how the Joseph Smith papers editorial content is biased towards the stone in the hat. instead of the Urim and Thummim.
Well, there is this tendency I've noticed in the middle class of the church, the bureaucratic class, the academic class, because you've also got the prophets and the apostles.
Right.
They're using their revelation, right?
Right.
But then we've got this man-made counterfeit that is academia, right? And then there's the laymen. And these people, the only thing they're good at is trying to gatekeep, because the ones on top are trusting these junior varsity players to make sure that the freshmen get the information, right? But then all JV does is try and gatekeep the freshmen from the varsity people.
That's right.
And it's like whenever secular academia comes up with a theory, they're so dazzled by the PhD.
And they want to be accepted by
and
their
they want to
peers.
be accepted so badly that they're like, okay, we'll change church history to fit whatever your theory is. Yeah.
Well,
like, oh, what is it? Oh, like, I mean, science literally invented racism.
Yeah.
In the 1800s, Blumenbach, the doctor, and evolution was the biggest gift to racists out there, because they all of a sudden could justify their heinous and ungodly views. Yeah. And science started saying, "Oh yeah, I don't know, all you racists, yeah, you're right. In fact, we're going to bend the scriptures to tell you how we can fit all of curse of Cain. Yeah, you're right. We have our version of racism too. It's the curse of Cain. Yeah, see, we can hang out, right? Yep. We can hang out. Yep. And now, whenever secular academics come out and they say, "Well, actually, no, Joseph Smith didn't know what was going on in the Book of Mormon. He had to be taught by us because we are the priestly class. We are the true
think
scholars."
about this.
We're like, we'll change our church history to fit your narrative. Yeah, we did it before. We'll do it again.
Well, what I love is a prominent LDS academic journal is called The Interpreter. And what more arrogant name could there be than The Interpreter?
Well, isn't that just based off of the interpreters?
Well, yeah, but
isn't that like calling it the Liahona?
It's The Interpreter. So it's like they are the ones who are authorized to interpret for everybody else.
Okay, I don't know if I'd read that far into it, but I can see where you're coming from.
Well, that's what's the genesis of it. I mean, it's to reveal truth, right?
Yeah.
And to expound on the scriptures and all the things that they do as if they are the ones approved to do that.
Dude, I love just talking with you because I feel like I'm part of a revolution.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but we're like part of a revolution, baby, you know? Well, okay, so we only got literally 2 minutes left, unfortunately. But so you write this book by the memes of the Urim and Thummim.
Well, let me mention one of the key things about it, and that is,
hit it.
There's a narrative, there's two dueling narratives right now about Joseph Smith. One was that he was just an innocent, ignorant farm boy that God touched, like a tap out and ordered the arrow or something, and turned him into a prophet. The other is that he was a conniving, brilliant, scholar, whatever. The third narrative is the one that we're promoting, and that is that the idea that the restoration did not start with the first vision. Joseph Smith said it started when he was 6 years old, when he had that leg surgery. And that made him a seeker, a religious seeker. And he began reading Christian materials. And in his 1832 history, he said he had an intimate acquaintance with those of different denominations. And all along, people thought, well, he must have known a lot of ministers. And we're saying, no, he read Christian material. He was familiar with the arguments on both sides, on multiple sides. And God incapacitated him at a young age for 3 years where he couldn't walk. He was still on crutches when they moved to Palmyra because he had nothing to do other than read Christian material. And so I've written another book where I document all this and how the non-biblical language in the Book of Mormon is based on the writings of these Christian authors, particularly Jonathan Edwards. And so what that does is it makes Joseph Smith a literal translator. I mean, he had the mental language bank, I call it, to perform that translation. Certainly with the Urim and Thummim, we propose a mechanism of translation in there that makes a lot of sense too, which is that the Urim and Thummim would give him a literal, direct translation, which wouldn't make sense in English, so he had to study it out in his mind to render it into English. But he knew from his intimate acquaintance with these other Christian authors how to articulate what the Nephites were saying.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really an awesome, and that's what Richard Bushman has talked about in his latest book too, because he thinks it's a powerful interpretation of Joseph Smith.
Wait, so you're blazing a trail here.
Yeah.
And even Richard Bushman is picking up on this?
Yeah, he is.
Wow.
He's in his latest book on the gold plates, he cited my books and this one 17 times. So he's recognizing that this is a legitimate thing that needs to be considered by scholars throughout the church. So
last question before we go.
Yeah.
How much of the restoration do you feel like we actually have a good grasp on? Like, how, for example, they say, less than 1% of the Amazon and the archaeological sites in the New World have even been excavated.
Right.
Like less than 1%. what percentage of the restoration do you feel we have a grasp on?
That's a really challenging question because we don't know how much there is yet to be revealed. But we know we have the 100% of the essence of it because we know we have the basic scriptures, we know we have the temple ordinances, and we know we have the commission and the authority to preach the gospel throughout the world. As far as how much additional will be revealed, we can all hope more. But this gets back again, I don't think we're going to get a lot more revelation until we accept what we've already received. And Joseph and Oliver gave us a solid foundation that we've largely rejected on these issues.
Wow. Them are fighting words, but I'm liking it. I'm feeling it in my core that I got to read by means of the Urim and Thummim. And you've got another book over there as well. What is it called again?
The Rational Restoration.
Okay, I'm going to have to read both of these. You're signing these before we get out of here.
Okay.
And I am intrigued. I'm loving everything that I hear. Where could people find you? If they want to find more of your books, and they want to find more of your hidden gnosis that is not on Scripture Central.
Well, they'll have to watch your videos over and over.
Yeah, we're going to put some links. I'm going to put some links to Are they on Amazon? Are they on Amazon?
Yeah, they're Amazon, Deseret Book. The publisher, which is Digital Legend, has them on their site here, digitallegend.com.
Okay, this is awesome. This is great. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. It's been real and it's been fun and it's been real fun. For this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com.
So good. Oh, I just feel so good.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Before you go, please make sure that you like the video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please let this be the video in which we earn your subscription and that you press the alert button so you're alerted to all of our fun live streams and standalone videos and community posts. Also, if you'd like to help us out, please consider joining the channel. Members get all kinds of cool perks and benefits. They get early access to a lot of our videos and special emoticons and emojis during our live streams and preferential treatment there. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, we have a super cool Discord. If you'd like to join our Discord, check us out on wardradio.com. There's a link to the Discord there. Also, you can sign up there for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a lot of fun, and you can put your email address in there. And if you'd like to contribute to the program, please consider looking us up on Venmo or on the Cash App. We're on both of those platforms. Also, if you just want to keep watching more content, right about here and probably right about here are going to be some more videos. Please check those out. And as always, for this and more, please make sure that you look us up and check us out at wardradio.com.